I don't want my president to sit with Trump in that Oval Office after I've seen what he did to that president. I'm two years and a half elected SG and people already want me to be president. That's a great achievement. They should be talking about Paul. Everyone should be worried about the budget, about the performance of the economy and all of that. Everyone should be worried. Our reaction to the ANC, to the politics of America will be different. Because to us, it's nothing else but imperialist aggression.
Mr. Mbalula, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's great to have you, and this is a wonderful sign of your commitment to public dialogue. The election in 2024 was, of course, a pivotal moment for our country and a pivotal moment for the ANC. You dropped from 57 to around about the 40 mark. It's nearly coming up to a year since that election. How do you think about it now, given how important it was for our country?
Thank you very much to you, Sizwe, and the foundation, Friedrich Naumann Foundation, and everyone in the audience and those here. And we are here as the strong proponents of dialogue in our society. We subscribe to national debate and engagement and conversation. Twitter is nice, but it's not a platform for debate. So this dialogue is very important. I think we arrived at that moment because of a number of factors in terms of the outcome of the election. We have since made an analysis about what happened. We fought very hard not to get to 40%. But nonetheless, we are now a 40% party in a government of national unity.
What do you think contributed to the ANC's decline in that election? You say you've been through some reflections. What were the outcomes internally within the party of those reflections?
First, I think it is a sense of incumbency, and which our opponents really used to deal with the ANC. It is easy to be outside because you can throw stones. Sense of incumbency, which ourselves, in our moment of renewal, we have come to terms that we need to get out of that situation, where, among others, sense of incumbency, we would have seen things like the public image of the ANC battered. And sense of incumbency, the other objective factors, the economy and global economy performance have affected us in relation to economic growth. The war in Ukraine and Russia did not also help us. The recession that has happened, but over and above that, how it has affected our constituency in terms of cost of living. It really dealt with us in relation to what one may characterize, quote unquote, as political apathy from our base. A person will wake up and vote for the ANC irrespective. But if the economy does not perform and that person is affected, is eating in their pocket, they are unemployed, the resilience of standing up and voting for a party like ours, because we are in charge, will affect the morale of such people. So what I'm saying, Sizwe, in short, is that it's a combination of factors, subjective and objective. Our party, from a subjective point of view, in terms of its machinery, which is unmatched, was at its weakest when we got into this election. A point we have admitted as an organization, and hence renewal and recovery. First in the party, but also how we respond to these objective factors is going to be important going forward.
You certainly had a lot of headwinds. There's no doubt about that. There was COVID in the first Ramaphosa administration. Like you say, global conflicts broke out, which affected the cost of living. There is a view that this election was the time when South Africans felt that they could no longer trust the ANC to keep its promises. Do you think that is a fair reading of what happened in the election?
I think, like one said, since of incumbency, 30 years of democracy compared to many other countries I've seen in the video and in the opening remarks, you will see that the ANC have done well. It is contested. It is doing well. In terms of the review reports that we have presented, and the Stat SA, what it has put out there, that single statement that sum up the Stat SA that South Africa is better than where it was 30 years ago, notwithstanding challenges that are there. But we have had our own, curveballs and own goals as the party in power. State capture. Among others, state capture was key. And it became what one can characterize as accentuated, thing in the media and everywhere else that, like I said, this government is corrupt, cannot be. So all of the good things were outweighed by the negatives. And it worked against us. And everyone else capitalized, and our enemies, doubled in numbers, both domestic and international. And a lot of political parties were formed to capitalize, I suppose, on this weak ANC. And that's what actually happened in this election. But we fought hard. And I'm very proud about the 6 million people who voted for the ANC in what will be not so much of a high voter turnout. Even in a turnout like we have witnessed, the ANC still managed to garner 6 million people to vote for it as a party that we still believe in you and then continue. So,
and since then, a lot has happened, and we're going to get on to so much of what's happening from foreign policy to the GNU. But just while we focus on the party, you as a SG have been on what I can only recall as an unprecedented move to reconfigure the party, to, as you've said in a recent interview, really look at the structures on the ground, which you described as being in a dire state. And you've certainly taken charge of changing the party. How are those reconfiguration efforts going? And can you give us a sense of what has been done within the ANC since the election? Because it's quite a sweeping set of moves that have been made.
I think as it has proven by a number of research groups in the country, first, South Africans embraced the GNU. That is a positive result out of the outcome of the election, and they applauded the majority of the ANC and other political parties that the ANC have shown maturity in a democracy. And secondly, the response of the social partners when we talk about addressing the challenges we are facing in our society, in particular in our economy, and so on. The response has been positive, even though has been positive, overwhelming, but the practical response has been like wait and see attitude of people and all of that. So we have seen positive spin-offs in terms of the objective factors, questions of load shedding and all of that. People said load shedding will come back immediately the following day. So the trust deficit between the ANC and the voting populace of our country was affected in the last election. And the fact that we have gone up to more than 300 days after the elections without load shedding. That brought some back. I don't know how it will translate into the election, but we have won each and every by-election. We have contested, and with bigger numbers. I think those are positive things. In terms of the party, reconfiguration arises in the context of, here is the state of affairs. You've got two provinces. Yes, you have dropped everywhere in the country, but populous provinces and all of that, like Gauteng and so on, what do you do in those provinces to respond? Because you deal there with people who are highly opinionated, whom you cannot just run roughshod over them. And the key question is, aerially, in terms of leadership and so on, are you able to respond to that? But people are no longer being hoodwinked. They want facts, that certain things are moving in a particular direction, and they need to be convinced about that. So reconfiguration entails renewing the party, but at the same time working very hard to build the party, the ANC, in terms of ensuring that we are able to respond to the current challenges. We need to prepare our leadership. Like I said earlier on, that we are unmatched when it comes to the rudimentary strength of the ANC on the ground. Wall to wall, nobody can match the ANC. And the only reason why we declined, even in the townships and so on, is because the ANC capacity is sort of challenged. And these are the things, some of the things that we are addressing in the reconfiguration.
You've been quite decisive with the reconfiguration. And one argument is that there's a danger in how decisive you've been, to the extent that there may be disgruntled people in Gauteng, disgruntled people in KZN who were in the leadership, who were elected into the leadership and now see themselves as ordinary members of the PEC, your Bheki Mtolos or your TK Ngcizas. Are you worried about a blowback from this reconfiguration effort, where there may be some attempts to frustrate your charge to shift the party in Gauteng and KZN?
You know, this reconfiguration have taken place over a period of time. It's not something that you took a decision today and you implement tomorrow. It has taken some time. And knowing the ANC, as you know it, you would have seen people toy-toying, singing songs, challenging the reconfiguration, pushing back and all of that. All of these things have not happened. And it's not a miracle. It's because everybody has come to appreciate the moment that you can't be out of power. It's not a given. Your majority is not a given. You've got to work for it. It dawns on the minds of ANC activists and everyone else to say that this thing is not done maliciously, of just getting rid of people. We embrace them. And some of them are very young. They will even come and lead the ANC even better. And they must embrace this moment as a moment of an experience. You know, that at some point I was elected and I was reconfigured, I admitted, and I went to the ground and worked for the movement. So there was no pushback. The structures are not happy in terms of the state of the party. Everyone is on the ground, rolling up their sleeves and seeing that this thing called power is not a given. It can go away. And people are not voting, you know, kettles. They can change their mind. And changing their mind is not by protest. It's by deciding that I'm withdrawing my vote. The ANC must fix itself. That is the preoccupation of reconfiguration. And then once you have fixed yourself, you will then be able to talk to the general populace about what kind of a party are you? Are you convincing to these people that you can do things for them better? That's what is important.
Just quickly on the reconfiguration, there were some murmurings in the media that some people wanted to take it to court, etc. Have you had any papers served on you, anything like that?
No, we have not been served with papers, but if we are, we will defend. But also because I think those are people who were generating negativity out of this. I can tell you that overwhelmingly, for the first time in the ANC, that people can take it, that such a decision can happen. And they can see that through misinformation, that decisions are taken for one or the other reasons, that no, this thing is not about that. It's about building our party. Nobody has been thrown to the streets. We have said to our people, come, let's work. Here is work that needs to be done. Let's work together. We, national and our provinces, in reconfiguring these structures, let's work on a program which is largely about the people.
There's no doubt you've done quite well in the by-elections, and surprisingly in KZN as well, clawed back some ground that you lost. But there was a recent poll that came out from the Social Research Foundation which had you down at 32%. Now, I think there were 15% or something of undecideds. But what do you make of that poll? Because that would suggest that at least the 40% where you are might be a realistic figure for a future election.
Yes, we have seen that. As the ANC, we don't argue with polls. They tell a story because they sit on the telephone and call people. And then they say, if there was going to be an election today, will you vote the ANC? They say no. And what is the time? That time Sputnik have just announced stage 6 of load shedding. So,
well, can he stop doing that?
Yeah, I don't, yeah. So, and then it moved from stage 6 to stage 8. And then you call me and
you
ask me, today, will you vote? I won't. Somebody's going to
Even
say,
you.
I want them out right now. So, but nonetheless, it's a poll. There were interesting polls before the elections. And even before these elections, in the elections, I think in 2016, that said the ANC will lose metros. We're arguing against that and saying that no, it won't happen. We are the mighty ANC. We will emerge, and we lost Joburg. We lost Pretoria. We lost Guruleni. We lost Nelson Mandela. It was a bloodbath. Something like that has never been seen. And then we governed in these metros through coalitions. So, Sizwe, I don't want to argue with the poll. From where we are, we analyze the poll and what does it tell us. And then we then respond to it in the war room from a point of view of how do we shape the party for these challenges. So anyone who's obsessed with personal interests and not seeing it that things can happen in this country. Revolutionary parties and liberation movements have been deposed through a democratic election. It has happened. What is important for the ANC, we are the last to be liberated. Not the last, up until Western Sahara is liberated. But we are the last in Southern Africa to be liberated, and we know all the lessons. If you talk about Latin America, we've got the lessons of the Sandinistas in Nicaragua, who were out of power and they came back. We know of Malaysia, and East Asia and all of that, what actually happened there. And then we know in Africa. So we have, before we even got liberated, we have seen all these things happening. So that is why we are shaping up and we are committed to our renewal project, and we are firm and amidst the challenges, and we are steadfast and we're determined. If we don't, that's why we use the slogan, we either renew or perish. And that's what is important.
Now, it seems to me in a few years, the ANC is going to be coming up to its next elective conference. And when there is an elective conference at the end of a second term of a president, there's usually blood on the floor. How is the party planning to avoid having blood on the floor like we had at Polokwane, like we had at Nasrec 1? And are those conversations and is that strategy underway? Because as Tokyo Sehwale recently said to me in an interview, President Ramaphosa is in the departure lounge as far as the ANC is concerned.
Well, Tokyo shouldn't be saying that because he's just polarizing the debate. I saw him throwing names and so on, nothing wrong. But as a leader of the ANC, he must be responsible. We are in danger here. You know, if you want to divert the ANC, just discuss the next leader. As I can tell you right now in WhatsApp groups, there's GM 2027, GM this and that, or whatever that it is. If you want to get and to divert the ANC, push that line. And Tokyo should know that better. And that's why we've taken a decision deliberately. I'm going to answer your question directly.
Sure.
We said it's an easy discussion. But you can't pursue your membership in that direction when you are a 40% party. Because we will be discussing the next leader of the ANC after 2026 when you are probably a 30% party. You need to discuss that question when you have shown that you are on the recovery. And that's why as leadership we have said, and our membership have listened. Now, I need to check Tokyo's membership as the SG and remind him quickly that you will have time. Coming to your question, Sizwe, that question is going to be very important for the future of the ANC. Like the things Tokyo is raising, which are very important, need to be considered. We have agreed that we will prepare for that discussion so that there are no surprises. We might as well arrive at that discussion and conclude that we don't need a contest. Because this contest is going to turn us asunder politically. There's no need for this because we have recovered so much from the 40%. We need to consolidate to go forward. Before you put personalities, who's going to lead, I see the comparison and I'm also thrown into the mix. And I'm two years and a half elected SG and people already want me to be president. That's a great achievement. I've not even finished my term, you know. I've not even halfway, because halfway it will be in August. And then they should be talking about Paul. That should be the man who should be under pressure, because he's on the doorstep, you know, he's knocking. I'm not deputizing anybody. I am the SG. I would love to feel that I've made a difference. That's my personal thing. It doesn't matter for the ANC. What is important for me is to get the ANC on track and not to be obsessed with something that we will resolve easily about who leads the ANC and all of that. That's going to be important to consider. And you can't conceal or fudge that kind of a discussion. It has to be open, and then it has to also be informed by principles and all of that, but also the interest of the ANC. It is fine for all of us to say we want to stand, but will our standing assist the movement? So Sizwe, I'm saying that Tokyo is starting something that he knows can divert us from this path. So you need to be focused. To an extent that is overstepping discipline, I'll have to check because we have given an order to all members, an instruction, and that is democratic centralism. Don't talk about leadership. Yes, we know in WhatsApp groups, something is going on there. The media want this because they know that we'll jump into it quickly. But we have said to our people and our structures and leadership, desist. Even now when we're discussing reconfiguration, there were sentiments that are being dealt with because 2027. We suppressed that. We suppressed that thoroughly because that's opportunism. We are dealing with the state of the party that is 40%. Your interest will come after. And if you serve well in terms of this process, you will prove that you were meant for this. But for now, allow the organization to reflect, to renew, and to transform.
Okay, but would you stand for president? No.
Yes,
no.
yeah.
And also,
I wish I was at liberty to answer that question, but I'm not. Even if I can tell you that I'm not available. Tomorrow the headline will be saying Mbalula is not available. And then the membership is going to say, the man who is saying to us, we must not talk about this, he's going to Sizwe and telling him, where does he stand? SG is not consistent. He's the one who must be disciplined. So I'm not allowed to talk about that. At the right moment, when I'm asked and the debate is opened, I'll tell you.
Can you announce it on my podcast?
I will come. Your podcast is very popular. Yeah.
No, I think that's a really interesting view of the ANC and what's happened in the past, what's going on right now, and what the future holds. But let's get into some of the serious things that are confronting the country.
Yeah.
Because Mr. Mbalula, wow. I mean, it's just March and it feels like we've been through 3 years of politics this year already. The first thing I'd like to ask you about is, can you take us into these GNU negotiations? How did the ANC, from being, my words, not yours, devastated in the election, win the negotiations, emerge with the presidency, emerge with the deputy presidency, Minister of International Relations, security cluster, various provinces, you're even governing in KZN in a coalition. I think it's fair to say that you lost the election, but you won the negotiations. How did that happen?
First, I think when it was clear that we were 40%, we had to take decisions. As a party, it was clear that we are faced with a challenge. And the question was, what are you going to do with this 40%? Now we need to analyze first to understand where do we stand as a party with this 40%? Can you still be in power and how? Through a minority government, confidence and supply. And you can also go out within these 14 days and call for the rerun of the election. And then you can also become an opposition, but you'll become the biggest opposition ever. So you've got 6 million people who have voted for you, so what do? Can anyone in this country govern without the ANC? So the system, our democratic dispensation in terms of that outcome, especially in terms of the national and provincial election, does not allow anyone to govern without a party that got 40%, where they themselves could not reach a particular mark. So they need the ANC. So that's why when we're negotiating, we're not negotiating with a cap in our hand. We could bully anyone, but we didn't. We had to then say, what is best for South Africa? And then we had to define what is national interest. If it was selfish for us, we could have said to everyone around the table, we prefer a minority government, because all what we're interested in is blue lights. And they will allow us with our blue lights to go on. Because minority government does not mean you've got overwhelming decision making in relation to the legislature. It means you've got to give in. It's a give and take. But at the end of the day, what is in the interest of the people of South Africa? We then said, out of all these options, we go for GNU. Let's invite everyone to come in. We talked to all political parties, 12 or so, in the national legislature, all of them. And then we engaged them, and then we said, here is our point of engagement, government of national unity. Let's work together. So 10 political parties embraced the GNU. Others said we are out if the condition is this and that. Now, I don't think that is a stroke of a genius. Otherwise, Amilcar Cabral will turn in his grave that here are these people claiming an easy victory. The simple thing is that you can't govern without us. Simple. Before you go to negotiations, when I look at your face, that's what I told Floyd. I said, you are not going to make me write another exam. Because in the last election, in the coalitions, in the metros, they came with some condition and said we must go and write an exam. And then we answered every question in that exam paper.
Wow.
And the Professor Shivambo came back and said, wrong. Yes. So I had to tell the professor this time, Shivambo, that look, professor, we are not going to listen to your story today. We are not writing any exam. Come, let's talk. And then everybody understood. Remember, political parties, some were formed, some and so on, and they had agreed, including other parties, that when the ANC is below 50%, they thought it's easy. We will all work together to get rid of the ANC. And they use words like surgical, dealing with the ANC. And then when we had to deal with, we look at the board, it was impossible to do it without the ANC. But the ball was in the ANC's court. We could have just decided that minority government or we work with one or two political parties. What do they call it, Mahlenge? When you decide to work with one or two, grand coalition. Grand coalition, we could embark on a grand coalition and work with others. We then said GNU. So GNU is for South Africa. And that is what the ANC have chosen. And if we were very selfish, we would have just chosen one or two, three. Let's go and govern this country and move forward. And then that is it. Will it work for South Africa where nobody have registered an outright majority? For us, it will. But for South Africa, it will not work. Because this country, the price of bread could have been probably 400, 500 rands by now. I'm just talking, I'm not going deeper. Those who understand what I'm talking about will understand. But we had to choose our country. You know, there was a famous president in our country who appointed a minister for a weekend. And then you must ask that famous president, why did you rescind this decision? By Friday, there was a minister. By Monday, the decision was rescinded. Why? It was rescinded because everyone else around who controls the economy, who have invested in this country and all of that, were leaving. There was capital flight in this country. The price of bread would have been 1,000 rand. These South Africans from Soweto to the Cape and all would have marched to the street and this government will be removed by weekend. No South African will tolerate what is happening in other countries here. They will march and take government out of power. So in South Africa's interest, because we are building an economy within a capitalist mode of production. We didn't come to Pretoria by AK-47 and seize power. We came through a negotiated political settlement out of a pressurized process protracted of a struggle that isolated the apartheid regime. So we're not in a scenario where in which everything else will happen in our favor because we want things to happen in that way. Let me pause there. So I'm just saying, Sizwe, that we had to choose the people. And that is what brought us GNU. And we're working with everyone, and we're committed to GNU. And GNU is an idea muted by the ANC, shared by everyone, and they agreed to it. And let me say this as much about the DA issue. You've got to respect parties. I mean, DA didn't come with 1% in government. They came with more than that. So we had to deal with that particular question, even with other political parties.
Sure.
Yeah.
The key question for the GNU is it going to actually deliver for South Africans? I think you're quite right. The markets seem to like the idea. South Africans supported it. It has the support of 75% of the electorate in one reading. But unemployment still seems to be very high. Growth is sluggish at best. And of course, the most recent events in Parliament show that there hasn't been agreement on the budget. So South Africans, I think, are wondering, is this coalition actually working? Or is it going to help us only to move sideways going forward? I mean, just reflecting on the budget process, how anxious should we be about the lack of agreement over such a crucial pillar of governance?
Everyone should be worried about the budget, about the performance of the economy and all of that. Everyone should be worried about that.
Okay, now I'm very worried.
Exactly. We are in uncharted waters. If we're a majority, we will move ahead with the budget. It has got shock in the system, because in South Africa such a thing has not happened, where the budget is postponed, but we've got shock absorbers, because everyone understood quickly that we've got the GNU, and then we've got to talk about the budget. It has never happened that the budget get to be discussed in a way that it has been discussed in our country. We arrive in Parliament, the minister is ready, and he explained to us why he has taken this direction, and that is it. And then it is done. So it is not political parties. First, it is the executive that took the decision. Political parties are just taking advantage of that to say, no, it is us who reversed this and so on. It is civil society also that had reservations through COSATU and everyone else and so on. The fact of the matter is that when the Minister of Finance goes and Treasury, we have built a strong treasury in our country, and we must be proud of that. So that is why there were no fears when the budget was postponed that we are going through, a disastrous path. Because whatever that was discussed in the executive, as it was explained by the minister, was to allow Treasury to go back and crunch the numbers and say whether this thing that you are suggesting here is doable or not doable. And that's what the minister and Treasury have done, and we're optimistic that we will produce a budget come next week on Wednesday.
How optimistic are you that come the 12th we will have a budget?
I'm very optimistic that we will have a budget. It might be a budget that not all of us will agree, but we'll have a budget.
Will there be a VAT? Will there be a VAT increase in the budget?
I don't want to talk VAT. I don't want to talk VAT. I don't want to pretend to be something I'm not. an economist overnight, fly by night, and all of that. What I know is that our economy is not performing well, and that our borrowing capacity is exhausted. As much as we have managed our debt very well over the years, at the present moment, as we approach the budget, is that our revenue capacity is actually affected. And we keep going to borrow, but it's a challenge. Are there options besides VAT? What we have given to our deployees when we're discussing the matter, we said just be open to everything.
So is,
And that is what is important. But at the end of the day, we cannot collapse on this budget.
right.
We must have a way forward on it. And we're expecting the executive to report through the minister and deliver a budget come next week on Wednesday.
So the ANC is not in principle opposed to a VAT increase either.
ANC have got a clear position on VAT in terms of our manifesto. Read it and read it over and over again. We say that, no, we're very clear. We say in terms of our manifesto, in terms of VAT, that all essentials must be zero rated. And that's what is important. But we did not envisage that in terms of the budget, there will be an introduction of an increase, either 2 or whatever percentage, but those who are working out our finances look at all the options at their disposal and bring them forward by way of taking the country forward, and we don't just collapse on the matter of the budget. So what we have been told, and which we understand clearly, is that revenue is a challenge. We're spending more, but we don't have enough. And at the same time, we must cushion the poor, but not just the poor in terms of policies. Where is the money going to come to finance employment of more teachers? That's what is important. Where is the money going to come from to sustain DRD? Of course, we are saying that it must be changed, as we say in our policy, to become a basic income grant. Not just give and all of that and so on, but people must be trained, get out of the system, get employment and all of that in terms of the income grant. Where are we getting money to employ more police and all of that? So the
Right.
question is, Sizwe, we're back to 1994. When we got into power, we said to people, where Father Christmas as the ANC will do everything for free. And then we introduced the RDP. But when we got into power, we found a debt by the apartheid regime. Then the question had to arise, where are you going to get financial capital to fund the reconstruction and development program? So that is why COSATU and them were very angry with us when we said, we want to achieve macroeconomic stability through GEAR. They said, no, don't. Spend more. And all of that, but we said it's not sustainable. But GEAR in itself is not an end. We can implement it and withdraw it over time. And that is exactly what has actually happened. So we are
Sure.
back in 1994 where we are saying we are facing this situation that is facing us and we need to navigate through this,
Right.
working together. So there are many options, and I don't just hope, and I believe we'll find each other on this matter, everybody. It doesn't matter. DA, COSATU, business and everybody will have shared their views and the ANC on what must actually happen. At the end of the day, let's have a middle road for everyone. And understand that there's got to be a sacrifice from each one of us for a little while in order to recover. That's what is important.
I could talk about the budget for a lot longer, but there's one final set of issues I want to come to, and that's foreign affairs. And that has really dominated headlines recently. Maybe in the question and answer, we can get into some of the other questions around the GNU. But President Trump, I mean, I could just stop there. Before we get to AfriForum and the DA's recent visit to Washington, I mean, this executive order really takes aim at South Africa and says, not only are we, unjustly expropriating the land of white Afrikaners, but our foreign policy, in particular our partnerships our ICJ case, and also our relationship with Iran are subjects of this executive order. How do you react to the President of the United States being so bullish and aggressive on South Africa's foreign policy and its domestic policies?
I will say that Trump and his administration are doing things that they said to the voters in America they will do before the election. I followed the campaign consistently, and I had hoped that they don't win, but they've won. So they've won. And Trump said he will review in all multilateral institutions America's participation. Before he went to an election, during the altercation around COVID, he had issues with World Health Organization. The first day when he reported to office was to withdraw America from there, before even South Africa. And then he introduced that thing they called Dodge or Deutsch, whatever, through Elon Musk. And then they went straight to US aid. So America has been doing a lot of things through US aid, including supporting their policy in terms of international situation in different countries. But at some point, they took a decision when there was a discussion about HIV and AIDS that they will support the developing countries with aid, and it was channeled through US aid. That's what has actually happened. So when Trump comes to office, it then takes, in terms of this Deutsch and cutting, decide that, that's why he made an example about Lesotho in the state of the nation yesterday, that $8 million are used to support LGBTI plus in some country nobody knows in Africa, called Lesotho. So, so in terms of that US aid, South Africa became a beneficiary in terms of the support of HIV and AIDS. America came to the party. They are not proponents of the just transition. Trump have signed a directive which will affect, in terms of just transition, South Africa, Vietnam, Indonesia, not only us. And that's what has actually happened. That's Trump and his administration. What has become a direct attack to South Africa has been our policies in terms of expropriation and so on. All of these other things I'm talking about, he has been very clear. Let anyone go back during elections. Why are you shocked? He campaigned on that platform. And if it affects South Africa, at least we knew that is coming. Now, when it comes to direct attack, which is what we must fight as a country, is the distortion that people are dying here every day. And we are on a mission of land grab, literally. That is a lie. That we must challenge. Through diplomatic channels, we must reach out to Americans. Whether they want to listen to us or not, we must talk to them. We must talk to them about AGOA in terms of trade relations. That will be a direct attack in terms of trade relations between us and them. Is that the only option for us? No. But at the end of the day, our government can't give up on that. And
Just,
then our government...
Can I ask you on that, Mr. Mbalula, just in terms of the diplomatic channels? Are we doing that? Are we pursuing those channels? Because it feels as if there's almost a parallel diplomatic process going on at the moment with AfriForum. The DA, for some reason, has itself sent a delegation and come back recently. Do you feel like there's an attempt to dislodge the state as the partner speaking to Washington right now?
You see, what the DA and others don't understand is what is called national interest. When this economy collapses, it's not going to be a few people, it's going to be South Africa. Where will we go? We can't go back to Africa deep and everywhere else. We have to run to the sea. And we're going to drown there. So me and you, we don't have two passports. We are here. This is our country. We must defend our sovereignty. We must defend our country. DA and everyone else must work with government to defend South Africa's sovereignty. This petty politicking of doing things and side shows is not going to help South Africa. That I'm the first to knock at Trump's office. And then I don't want my president to sit with Trump in that Oval Office after I've seen what he did to that president.
At least we've avoided a conversation like that tonight.
With that president of Ukraine. Trump's combination advance.
Maybe President Ramaphosa shouldn't go, actually.
No, he should go. Ramaphosa must go to America if he's invited. And then if he feels he needs to go, he must go. He's a president. He served the whole of South Africa. Our reaction to the ANC, to the politics of America will be different. Because to us, it's nothing else but imperialist aggression. Okay? And we must campaign and talk even to our friends of civil society in America to challenge this stance of Donald Trump and his administration of world policemen. Ramaphosa doesn't serve the ANC, only serve this great nation. And South Africa can collapse. And our relations, if they have to collapse with America, it cannot be on our part. We failed to pursue goodwill with the Americans. This government have had good relations with America in terms of trade and all of that. And it is for the first time in history that America directly interferes in our policy choices. Now they are eating into our sovereignty through President Trump. So that's why it is possible that they are closing us out. We are addressed through X every day. It's something we have never seen in diplomatic channels. The Secretary of State is supposed to be talking to Lamula, and then it just passes, it just says, I'm not coming to your country for that G20, and he say it through less than 140 characters on X. And it's done. It's not coming. I'm waiting for Trump tweet. Maybe tonight, I'm not even coming to that summit in South Africa or something like that. But he had a conversation with the president. He said he will come.
Wow.
And
okay.
Yes, when he came into power, he talked to the president. And then he said he will come. Of course, he's friends with our own old man here, the golfer. They play golf together.
Any else?
Yeah, we must press the back channel, not any else only. He plays with any else, he plays with everybody.
Sure.
So
sure.
We must reach out to the American administration and make them understand. But for South Africans, like AfriForum and Solidarity, to go to America and badmouth our country like that, and then thereafter seek an audience with the president is disingenuous. Okay? It's disingenuous. They go to America, when they come back, they say, let's meet president. That's why president said, in my own understanding as a president of the country, I think you are disingenuous. You go and badmouth your own country, your own countrymen. I mean, white people in this country, we have defeated right-wing fringe as this country. I was in Australia with the Springboks, and we were beaten there. The stadium was full with the Springboks. And then after the game, we will go and sit, have pap and wors, because we had to think that South Africans in Europe, in Australia will come there. And I will address them and tell them how nice it is. They missed Cape Draft and all of that. And then I say, why did you leave? They said, we made a big mistake. So I say, why don't you come back? They say, we sold our farms. Everything is gone. We don't have anything there. But life is not good here. And then I can assure even those who want to go to America, We will address them when we go there in the World Cup with the Springboks, and they will not be happy
Right.
about staying there. So there's no need for anyone to run away from this country. So we have fought side by side and defeated when there was AWB there and there. White South Africans, whether on the side politically of the ANC or on the other side, there was common cause among us that this is our country. We don't subscribe to racism, and we defeated right-wing tendencies. Even after they killed one of our own, Krisani, to want to stop the momentum of freedom in our country, we were together. And that is why we talked about the Rainbow Nation and all of those things. And our diversity being appreciated, nation building and so on, which is still a project for South Africa. So I'm saying we must not give up on fighting for our country and simply give up on the basis of distortions and allow America to want to impose itself in our affairs. But their policy in relation to withdrawal in institutions and all of that, it must be a global attack in relation to multilateralism.
Right.
That is really from this position of Trump is under attack. Multilateralism has always been under attack, but not so fervent, decisively with Trump. Bush attacked multilateralism and went to fight a war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And he was supported by others. And then they didn't win anything in that war. Afghanistan and Iraq are still in tatters. Trump has gone further.
Well, Mr. Mbalula, thank you for this interesting conversation. And we're now going to pause and give some space to the audience. And so the way that we're going to do that is, first we're going to come to people in this room, and we're going to take 3 questions in this room. We're then going to take 3 questions outside in the spirit of democratic and the government of national unity, bring people from the outside in. And then we're going to take 3 from online questions. So let's start within the room, and can I please have 3 hands in this room for Mr. Mbalula? We'll take the questions consecutively. Right, so I see 1, 2, and 3. Please.
Thank you very much. You haven't spoken much about the smaller parties like the Freedom Front, who recently had, and no, I'm not a Freedom Front supporter, the question is going somewhere. They've recently had a leadership election and have a new leader, a leader who is quite pragmatic in his social approach, but quite clear as to what he wants for his party. So should they leave the GNU and it becomes unpopular, or it becomes popular for smaller parties, should they be willing to give up their ministerial seats? But should smaller parties start leaving the GNU and it's only you and the DA left, what would the ANC do?
Thank you very much. And that was a model of brevity. And could I ask the others asking questions to stick with that model? So.
Minister, not Minister, SG, Mbalula, sorry about that. So I know you're not an economist, and you say you don't want to be an economist overnight, but I do want to ask a little bit about when you look at the grand GNU that was had in Germany, that collapsed, and one of the key reasons why it collapsed had to do with the budget. And then you look at, yes, we've had a few complications in South Africa with certain acts and laws that needed to be passed, and political parties then opposed to that. And now you have the grand, I guess, opposal with the budget. Are there any lessons that the South African government in the GNU has taken from the German collapse, and particularly the fact that it collapsed over budget, and now we're potentially also looking at, well, some sort of opposition with our budget?
Great.
Can you please offer advice on that insight?
Thank you very much. Sir at the back.
Hi, Secretary General. My name is Tembelani Mazibuko. My question is with regards to the VAT. The ANC, we have not seen any commentary or conversation from the ANC around increasing corporation tax or the imposition of a VAT tax, or indeed tax evasion. A lot of mining companies do not pay tax, and it's in the billions in other companies. So why have we not seen that kind of conversation when it comes to raising revenue, especially because the ANC speaks about how it wants to fund critical as well as other infrastructure, as well as other public sector wages? Why have those things not even come out of the ANC, and we're only having issues of VAT, especially in a context where under the ANC government, VAT has gone from a high of over 40% to 28%. So why have we not had conversations around VAT as well as a wealth tax?
Great. So I think let's start with those three questions. It was smaller parties leaving the GNU, the German coalition breakdown and what can be learned around the budget, and then questions around VAT and alternatives to this budget impasse.
Thank you very much. If smaller parties start to leave, what will happen? There are no fixed answers on this. But we're committed to the GNU. So we don't want anyone to leave. There should be cogent reasons why people leave if they have to leave. We have created mechanisms, probably they are not sufficient. Should there be differences, how do we settle those particular differences in the context of the GNU? This is uncharted waters. What we know about GNU is only 1994, that the National Party at some point walked out, but the GNU stayed the course till the end. But that arrangement was institutional. So this one is voluntary. So when it actually happens, what will actually happen? There are options on the table. There are still options on the table that include a minority government, that include a grand coalition, that include supply and confidence. Should we not find each other in the long term? Meaning we're not going to get stuck and governance stop because this thing is collapsing. If it is collapsing and it is collapsing, there's nothing we can do about it. But at the present moment, we don't want GNU to collapse. If there are points of differences, we need to settle those particular points in terms of the discussion and the clearinghouse that we have in government. And that is why the president have appointed the deputy president to lead that clearinghouse. Already there are rumblings about the clearinghouse and so on, but that is the nature of these coalitions. In my office as the SG of the ANC, I have something that was not in the constitution in terms of powers and duties of the SG, added by the NEC called coalitions. I was not elected to manage coalitions, but because of the circumstances, I now deal with coalitions. And we have a team that we work with. It's difficult to manage coalitions, very difficult. That's why Johannesburg is the way it is. And now you all want to blame it on the ANC because our mayor have said wrong things there and there. The problem is the ANC. The problem is not our mayor. The problem is the system. Because you don't give one party overwhelming majority to govern and show you how they can govern. Because the ANC governed for 2-3 months, and thereafter you have another coalition. And when that coalition comes, they get rid of the municipal manager, they get rid of everybody, and then they bring their own system. It's not sustainable within 5 years in a city like Johannesburg. That's why you've got potholes. For the first time in Joburg, you've got potholes.
First time, SG.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure we've had them for quite a long time.
No, I've been a citizen and a resident of this city for the longest of time. And I know, at least after the new dispensation, I know that at least we've never had potholes in this way that we've got, because you govern from this end to this end and other new people come. Before Dada came in, there was somebody who was in charge. So, for some time, and the political parties, our game, we blame each other. It's not us, it's this one. But coalitions have not worked for our local government. So we need stability in terms of the GNU, and that is why we chose the GNU, because we chose stability, okay, in the national interest of South Africans. We didn't choose the DA like it is portrayed, that we're partners and all of that with the DA. We chose the people who are giving us that terminology are people who are political flip-floppers in our political terrain, who say, no, the ANC chose the DA. Everybody was invited. They didn't come. The DA must be responsible in the GNU. The ANC must be responsible in the GNU and work for the citizens to achieve the goals that we have set for this country and so on. The second question.
Can I ask you to take these two together briefly so that
Yeah,
we can go
I'll
to
take-
the others?
Yeah, okay. I agree. We must learn from Germany, and not just Germany, Italy. You know Berlusconi, there in Italy. He was a president there. And the coalition's government changed like monthly in Italy. Germany now, it is happening in Europe like rapidly, all the time. So I don't know whether there's something to learn from there. But what I can tell you is that these coalitions in Europe, they collapse despite the fact that they've got experience of coalition governments over time. They collapse, they are not stable. Probably our GNU can show them that we can run a coalition for 5 years with all the difficulties that we've got. And then the last point about tax. All options are on the table. Wealth, corporate tax, and all of that. And I think that question needs to be answered thoroughly when the budget has been presented. Because I don't think any of this will escape when it comes to tax intervention by the Minister of Finance. Yeah.
Thanks. Let's take 3 questions from outside, please. Now, I'm not quite sure because I can't see outside, so we may need someone from the team to select 3 people. Looks like there's a stampede of questions for you, SG.
We seem to have more than just 3 questions.
Great. Well,
I don't know if we can accommodate more.
Can we take the first 3, please?
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. SG, my name is Kamekolo Modiko. My question, okay. You took that joke which I wanted to make about having Kabelo Kwamanda as the next president, which is a reality that we face since now his name is cleared and things like that. You know? However, my question is regarding some of the comments that our colleagues have been having in the media and such things. We've been hearing about Edward Kitzwetter requiring 3.5 billion rands in order to collect tax more efficiently and so on and so forth. So my suggestion is that nobody must get fired, as we've been hearing, whether it's the minister from the presidency or...
Can I please ask you to come to the question, sir?
Yeah, Mr. Kitzwetter himself. It's just a suggestion. I'm just asking that let it not happen that anyone gets fired. Let's find ways to resolve the issues in terms of the tax efficiently, as long as it's not increasing the VAT. That's it. Thank you.
Good evening, SG. Just a very quick and simple question, and I appreciate all the response you've given to Sizwe. But please, can you just help guide what your view is in terms of how you think we can address the issue of unemployment within the next 3 to 5 years, please?
Thanks. And final one.
Good evening, SG. So it seems that the ANC's broad church has been pulled left and right. My question is, does the ANC have a real coherent economic and political ideology for South Africa, or does that depend on the ANC's future coalition partners? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll turn it over back to you, Mr. Mbalula, to answer those questions. And then we'll come to the online questions.
The first part was the comment that I think must be sent to the Minister of Finance as he prepared to present the budget next week. And I'm not undermining your point anyway, because I think you are making a comment and a suggestion that I think we must get it through to Enoch. Unemployment, we say in our manifesto, must be addressed through industrialization, because we have been working without industrialization over a period of time. And two, I think we need a buying in of social partners when it comes to creation of jobs. You cannot have a situation where companies disinvest and go to other countries when they've actually come to South Africa to invest. We have seen that happening in the past 5 years in our country, which those opportunities could have enhanced job creation for South Africa. Government can't do it alone, because government create an enabling environment for job creation. And government, through this network, must be able to address the impediments that business want to be addressed for industrialization and investment in South Africa. When it comes to political ideology, ANC coherence, we are very coherent. We are neither a capitalist nor a socialist party. We are a party of revolutionary democrats. So what it means is that we subscribe to a mixed economy in terms of the policy of the African National Congress. That's what we subscribe to. So we are not a socialist party. We don't want to dismantle the bourgeoisie and the capitalist. Okay? So we are neither in favor of a socialist arrangement in our country and so on. Other parties want that. And we are not a capitalist party, so to say. So that is why we characterize in our strategy and tactics, our relationship with capital is struggle and unity of the opposite. Meaning there are certain things we agree to, and there are certain things we don't agree to. Where we agree, we move forward together for better serving of our nation's interest in the long term. And that's what we have done since 1994 as a governing party. I used this word interchangeably, ruling and governing, and I was corrected. We are not ruling, we are governing. Okay? Ruling is happening in autocracies. We are not an autocratic state, we are a democratic state. So we are a governing party. So as a governing party over time, we have had these exchanges with business and capital where we have created a platform where we need to find each other. And this tool has worked for our country for years, which is network that others don't have in many other countries. So this is an important example that anyone can cherish.
Let's come to the final three questions, and you may not be able to deal with them exhaustively, but you can also just give a kind of summary of your thoughts on them, Mr. Mbalula. We have Jean Pretorius, who asks, what has the ANC learned from losing its majority, and how will it rebuild public trust while working in the GNU and with the DA ahead of 2026? We then have TK Pue, who says, why is the ANC demographic not inclusive of the actual middle class? Why have you continued to allow ZANU PF to infiltrate and destroy the region of SADC? And finally, Billy Klaassen says, we all see the propaganda campaign of AfriForum and Solidariteit, and they will be joined by your very own GNU partners to continue spreading lies. What will you as the leader of the GNU do? Of course, you won't be able to answer all of that, but if you can give some brief thoughts and perhaps your concluding remarks, we will be done by the allocated time of 8 p.m.
Yeah, I think some of the questions I've answered in the process of
Sure, yeah.
our exchange with you. We have learned a lot in this period of reflection after we received 40% as the ANC. And you can see our efforts. And I can speak for the party, but at the end of the day, what we are doing will be good if it is felt by the people. And the people are saying we see a changed ANC. We see the ANC that is renewing itself and all of that. And I think with the efforts we're putting up post that loss in the period we call renewal and recovery, I hope that this sentiment will come through. If it doesn't come through, it means we have not made an impact and convinced everyone, including in the street, to see that our party is modernizing, is changing, and we have actually reduced the trust deficit between us and the people. But from our part, we are doing everything to change that situation that befell us in May last year. Middle class, I don't know whether we have a middle class or we have a straighter in South Africa. It's something that is debatable because class is defined against the means of production. It means you stand to own something. So these people who are middle straighter, because they are educated, they can afford to buy a car every month and they work for government, can't be defined as a class. So a class is somebody who's got something that they own there and there. And I don't know, we still have to debate that, but we do have a lot of middle straighter people in the ANC. They are not probably in leadership echelons, but the party that we are, there's a lot of the people who are in the middle straighter in the African National Congress who also have views. And that is why in the ANC, we pride ourselves of debates and dissent. We don't discipline people in the ANC for espousing divergent views. We discipline them for failing to follow the party line. So if you just wake up and disown a decision and you want to speak with authority on the decision that has been taken, you must understand it's a decision. But you can debate, including now. There is a debate about VAT and the economy and all of that. And members of the ANC have got, in their own capacity and expertise, have got a right to engage with that debate. To say that, but we think that our government must take this position. They've been doing that constructively. Now, I'm not talking about people who are whining on WhatsApp groups and all of that, who say all sorts of things. I'm talking about people who contribute to a debate. When a country is faced with a challenge, rather than just sending tips to the minister of finance, send ideas also. Minister, we have heard that you want to increase VAT. We don't think that's an option. Now, we've got scholars, we've got academia and people in the field. Now, you must contribute in that discussion. I was impressed with economic justice. They made the whole comprehensive input on the budget and tax, what must happen. And I read that. And I think some of the inputs that they made, they make a lot of sense that any person sensible somewhere in Treasury will take something from that. And that is the debate we basically are talking about.
Can I ask you to round up here?
Yeah, I'm rounding up.
Because I'll never get this
What
chance
is Billy
again
Klassen
to
saying?
round up.
What is Billy Klassen saying?
He's effectively saying AfriForum and Solidarity are being joined by your GNU partners.
Oh, okay. No, we have said that. We are South Africa, we are patriots. We must unite and we must work with anyone, against anyone who badmouth our country and undermine our sovereignty and our patriotism. With all the difficulties we have, we think South Africa is a great country and must be defended by all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mbalula. You have given us much food for thought, been typically robust, at times donned the mantle of prophet, and at other times the mantle of critic. But thank you for engaging with us, and please join me in another round of applause for Mr. Mbalula.